Hi, I'm Jasper Pattenden at Wycombe Wanderers, and you're listening to Wycombe Sound.
The Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, which this week is the Wycombe Wanderers Show abridged. You'll soon see why. Because there's no game to look ahead to, the Wycombe Wanderers Show, as is normally, will be officially only 30 minutes. It's like sort of extra time. Not really. So we've got sort of a normal-ish show, some of the usual features. So no Wycombe Wanderers ex-player association player to speak to this week. That will return next week. We do have a current Wycombe Wanderers Women's player. We'll chat to Axelle Courlander, who is a forward signed in September, but hasn't played too much, mainly due to injury. We'll be hearing from her very soon as well. Also, at around sort of what would be the halfway point of the show normally, we'll be crossing over to join Phil and Wycombe Wanderers chairman Rob Couhig for the live Q&A, which is on the Wycombe Wanderers YouTube channel, and you'll be able to hear it live here on Wycombe Sound as well. So that's sort of part of the reason. So partly because there's no game to look ahead to, and partly because we've got the Q&A with Rob. Let's catch up with Phil now, though, and we'll chat more about Joe Jacobson's testimonial event on Tuesday and hear from a couple of the members of the guests who appeared on stage at Adams Park that night. But first, obviously, with all the talk of last week, the club statement with events concerning the Reading training ground, a lot seems to have happened since then.
Yeah, a week's a long time in politics, and I'm beginning to realise it's a really long time in football, especially when it comes to off-the-field matters. Things, I say developing, changing, I think is probably the word that's most apt. I'm not sure things are developing as quickly as Reading fans need or desire. And, to reiterate our thoughts from last week, it's the fans that suffer. And it's something they've been having to deal with for much longer than we've been involved in this since the training ground thing came up. Wycombe fans kind of know what this feels like, although not to the scale and length that Reading have been dealing with it. So we hope it sorts itself out very, very soon. And we can all be talking about football again, and looking forward to a cracking league season next season when we're both in the same division, hopefully. But a lot can happen between now and the end of the season, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's to concentrate on Wycombe. What this issue has flushed out is that our sort of desire and the work that's been going on in the background for some time about looking at new facilities for training, and that's got our own fan base talking, as well as for the potential new investor, who that is, what their relationship is, how it will work, etc. So these have maybe progressed those questions and issues a little bit quicker than they perhaps would have been.
And great to have that opportunity to be able to hear from the chairman later on this evening. Yeah.
Well, I'll speak to you before that. It's always interesting talking to Rob, and he loves to do these sorts of things. He's very much in the spirit of a radio phone-in sort of guy. When I think a lot of our fans know this, but for those that don't, after Hurricane Katrina, Rob hosted the breakfast show on the radio station in New Orleans. And he loves the medium of radio. He loves that sort of instant communication and the transparency that it can offer. He's very much an off-the-cuff guy. I think that comes from him being a courtroom lawyer. I think he enjoys sort of discourse and chatting to people. And he's very American, I guess, is the only way I can describe it, in that no issues off the table, and he's willing to talk to anybody or answer any question as best he can. Obviously, then fans will digest those answers and maybe think, well, that's a lawyer's answer, or that was interesting, or I didn't expect that to happen. But yeah, all of the above with Rob. And I think in terms of his approach, I don't see many other league chairmen doing that. I know Darren McAntony at Peterborough's cut from the same cloth, and does his own podcast, and he's very transparent with what he has to say, and gets his feelings known. So perhaps this is where things are moving, but we shall see. I'm sure the Reading fans would love to chat with Dai Yonggi live on the radio.
No, very much so. I guess in terms of a sort of on-pitch as well, has it been very much business as usual for the players and Matt Bloomfield and his backroom staff as well this week, despite the fact there's obviously no game to prepare for at the weekend?
No game on the weekend, no midweek game either. So it seems bizarre, Colin, that I'm struggling to remember what happened last Saturday, and then of course it was Matt Butcher, 2 goals with his left foot, that saw us get our third consecutive win in the league and put us even further away from the top 4 and into the top half of the table. And it's been so busy with things going on off the pitch. Joe's night the other night as well, and lots of other bits happening. So, it'd be remiss of us to not mention that win against Northampton, because second half I thought we were excellent, certainly after the double substitution and the change of tactics, which were expertly pointed out by our co-commentator Joe Jacobson. And it was great to see those coming to full effect and getting the 2 goals that saw us deservedly take the 3 points.
And a great night on Tuesday as well for the club captain.
Yeah, wonderful. It was a really, really lovely event all round, I think. As a club, we hadn't really done anything like that before in that sort of format. I have to say, it's not like we put a huge amount of thought into it. It was more a case of what would work for everybody and as wide a range of fans as possible. And Joe was very keen for it to be as inclusive as possible in terms of the style of the event, the timing of it, the pricing point, etc. And it couldn't have got any better. And the turnout on the night is purely because of Joe Jacobson, because, Adebayo Akinfenwa, we know how precious his time is. And he even arrived on time for the night as well, which was mentioned once or twice in the proceedings. So that was nice. But the vibe in the room, there was like a sort of a green room for the current and former players and to hang out and catch up just before, while the fans were sort of catching up with themselves in the bar too. And then, the evening was wonderful. We heard from lots of great video messages from players who sadly couldn't join us on the night, players who were former and current teammates were able to share their thoughts as well as hearing from the gaffer. And then the other on-stage guests of the night were Gareth Ainsworth and Adebayo Akinfenwa, who went down very well.
We were looking for a left-back, right? We played Aaron Pierre at left-back at Torquay, who was a centre-half, obviously, and the momentous, we were just talking about it with Anthony and Sam Wood and people like that who's come tonight. And remember, we played Aaron Pierre at left back, and there's no way Aaron Pierre's a left back, right? He's a great centre half, but he was never a left back, although he did a great job down at Plainmoor there. But we're in the car and we were racking our brains. It reminds me of Jack Grimmer's sign, actually. We're racking our brains of the right backs and that, but left backs was, and then Joe Jacobson's name came up, and I said to Dobbo, I think I played against him, right? And I had. We played against him, and I think I'd played for Wycombe against him. And I said, he's not bad, him. I remember him putting some brilliant set pieces in, Dobbo. And I said, if we're going to survive again this season, we're going to need some good delivery from set pieces. So JJ's dad's right. We weren't actually aiming for Wembley playoff final that year, right? Believe it or not, right? We were aiming as high as we could possibly go. But he came, we were just talking about the belief, what we had to change at the club and the signings we were going to try and make. I remember Cedo, John Barty again, similar time we're coming in, reeling off these names. One name I didn't mention was Alfie Mawson. He was an absolute bonus on the day before the season started. But JJ was key. He was key because he was a name. He played at a higher level. He played consistently. And, to get him in was an absolute coup. And yeah, you have to do that sometimes on the phone and talk players round. And I didn't know I was talking his dad round as well, but we definitely got him. And 10 years later, one of the best signings this club's ever made.
Joe, what clinched it for you? What did he say? What was the magic line?
Well, first of all, you've been very kind in saying we played against each other. Because I remember when I was at Oldham and Wycombe came up to Oldham, and I remember you played right wing, I played left back. And I remember the manager at the time had a go at me at half time. He's like, he's 40 years old and he's running past you. Yeah, that didn't end well up there.
I used to do it to Cedo in training as well. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was just you and Dobbo, your attitude towards football and how positive you are and stuff like that. It was, it was infectious, and I wanted to just see, what, this sounds a bit of me, and how you wanted to change things, and players start coming through the door. As soon as pre-season started, first game of the season, all of a sudden you're thinking, no, we could do all right here.
Be record goal scorer in the Football League era for this club. How many would it have been if Joe Jacobson wasn't a Wycombe Wanderers player?
All right, before, because he was ripping me all day. So let me just get that out. Like, Joe's not the guy you think he is, you know what I'm saying? No, I'm playing. No, listen, for me, as a striker, and how good he is when I first came in, Joe knew and knows I don't like to run at all. So how good his left foot is, he was able to hit my head pinpoint because I wasn't moving. And that's how many goals I got, and that's how good he is. And look, I said it, and we've gone back and forth, but he made my life easy in the sense where he put it where was my strengths constantly. I didn't have to run, I just had to time it, and it was a beautiful thing. He got me a lot of goals, and he made you lot like me very much. So I like him.
No, look, he's being very modest there. It was the other way around, actually. I could just whack the ball wherever I want in the air, and I knew that was it. You bring the ball down, you'd score a goal, you'd twist it, turn, you'd go on mazy sometimes as well, and that's up there with some of the best things I've ever seen on a football pitch, when you get going and start holding 3, 4, 5 players off at the same time and dribble with the ball. But yeah, he made my life very easy, and it was one of those things where I knew where you were going to be and where you want crosses to be and things like that, and for a long period it really worked.
Yeah.
Bayo, the great thing about football is it brings characters from all walks of life, from everywhere, together to be a team. At Wycombe, it was a fantastic example of that, and there's no bigger character than you. What was it like being in that dressing room, coming into that strong environment already because of people like JJ in there?
Yeah, it was, we've mentioned it, Gaffer mentioned it before, JJ's mentioned it, and everyone from the old schools has mentioned, in the sense of balance. It was a cauldron of different characters, and listen, it is about him, so I will give him his flowers. But he knew how to manipulate and work individuals. Like me, there's a rumour going around that I was late all the time. Don't believe it. But so JJ, and the way he ran it, it was the respect we had for JJ because the way he went about stuff. So even there's so many stories, but Christmas dues, they'll plan Christmas dues, and I'll be the first to say, "We're going where? I ain't going. I ain't changing." And JJ would just know how to say, "Listen, B, it's a squad game. It's about you. It's not about you. It's not." And by the end of it, I was out there and we'd be dancing in the club together, and it was just the way he went about it. And on a personal note, while I would always drop everything I've got for JJ, I remember the championship season, and you always tell yourself, I went through the championship, I come back from my operation, I came back into the team, and as a striker, it was the only league I played in I hadn't scored. And you keep telling yourself, listen, if you don't get the goal, it's okay. It was an achievement just to get there. And that's what I was telling myself. And then it came to the Bristol City game. And so for me as an individual, I kept on, listen, I'm a strong individual, but I kept on telling myself, listen, if it don't come, it still was a success. You got to the champ at 39. When we got that last minute penalty, and this is a personal note, and I've said this to him, and I looked at him and he went, listen, big man, take it. And for him to give me that opportunity, for me to get my one and only championship goal, he gave me that. So I would always hold him in the highest of esteem because he gave me that.
The truth is, you gave me that look, and I was like, yeah, take it.
It sounded much better the way I said it, you know what I'm saying? But that...
I think it's really special, isn't it, as well, that someone... You don't really hear that much these days of someone who's at a club for 10 years and the contribution they've made during their time there either.
Yeah, it's very rare. The irony isn't lost on us that our final guest of the evening to speak with us and Joe on stage was Matt Bloomfield, who had the sort of not insignificant 19 years as a player at the club. But these are two one-offs in the modern game. There's very, very, very few in the last 2 or 3 years, and you look around the game now and you think, who's going to be next? Wycombe's next longest serving player is Jack Grimmer on 5 years. And when he realised that, you think, wow, what an achievement it's been. But also when you look at the stats, Colin, across the 9 years before this season, just incredible. The least amount of appearances Joe made in a season before this season was 36. That's a good return for any pro at any season, at any stage of their career. The most he made was 52. So there's a goal involvement, an assist or a goal once every 4 games, which for a defender is exceptional. And then you just look at the achievements of the club, and we only heard Gareth talking about it just now about the impact that Joe had on the club and one of the generals, and he was a huge part of the success of that era. We've been lucky to have him, and we're all excited to see what comes next.
We'll look forward to hearing from you a bit more a bit later on when you chat to the chairman. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, Colin.
More from Phil later on in the show here on Wycombe Sound.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Final part of this week's Wycombe Wanderers Show. I know it's a shorter one this week because of two things, really. One, the international break, meaning there's no game this weekend. What was going to be the Cambridge fixture has been rearranged for the 23rd of April. And also, coincidentally, from 7:30 you'll be able to hear live the Q&A, which is featured on the Wycombe Wanderers YouTube channel, which Phil will be hosting and chatting to the chairman, Rob Couhig. Many questions being answered this evening. But first, part of the regular feature on the show with Wycombe Wanderers Women, we catch up with striker Axelle Courlander, who signed back in September, but unfortunately due to injury hasn't played so much this season.
Because I joined a little bit into the season already, and it was in a period where there wasn't a lot of games being played because it was winter and, you know, games get called off and delayed and whatnot. So I didn't get to play when I signed, and I was coming off the back of a very long injury. So I'd tore my meniscus 2.5 years ago now. So I'd had a long period out, a long rehab period with another club, which didn't work out, so I ended up coming to Wycombe. Played in a game out of an emergency more than anything. I probably shouldn't have played. So I've not experienced too much match action with the club yet, which is obviously a bit disappointing. And then at the back end of November last year, I tweaked something in my knee, which has meant I've missed more games for the club. So I've actually not personally had the opportunity to really play with the team yet. I've trained a lot and been around the girls a lot, so I'm obviously still a part of the team and getting to know everyone pretty well. But the personal side of it, I've not really played yet. So the games that have been around, thankfully, have been pretty good games where was it Bournemouth? We've ended their unbeaten run, which was a nice moment to be a part of. And I think seeing the back end of this season, or the latter stage of this season, where things look like and feel like they're coming together a bit for the team. So I think Carl and Danny and Dan have been building a pretty strong second half of the season where things are starting to gel, I think, a lot better for the team, and we're seeing a lot better results because of that.
So how did you find the injury kind of periods, if you like? Because was it really frustrating, or did it kind of motivate you to want to get back and play more?
It was very frustrating because I was, I'd spent a long time getting myself fit again, getting myself in a position to be able to play again. So I'd felt pretty good and pretty strong and pretty confident with it. So it was very frustrating, and it does knock your confidence a little bit. It does make you question whether you want to keep playing, because it's like, why again? Why another one? Like, why can't it just, be consistent for a little bit and actually just let me play? But it's part and parcel of football. You've got to deal with it. So there was a little element of doubt on whether or not I was going to get up and go again. But, the injury wasn't that serious. Luckily, I went back to my consultant, my doctor that's been looking after my knee this whole time, had an MRI, and it was more of a sprain, but it's an area that takes a long time to heal. So that's why it's taken longer than maybe an ankle sprain might take. But he was like, you haven't affected your meniscus, you haven't affected your ACL, so that area is still nice and strong and safe to play on. So, yeah, there's an element of frustration. And then once, I think another thing that I really loved is that they brought in Danny, who was my coach at QPR, and I've always loved his sessions. I've always loved playing under him. So when that happened, I was really excited to also come back to training and train under Carl and Dan and the whole squad. So
would you say you're not a very good watcher? Because it must be tricky because you can't really influence the games, but on the other hand, is it quite nice to be able to be on the sort of sidelines and kind of offering sort of support and perhaps some ideas that way as well? It's
nice to offer support to your teammates, of course. Like, you want to be there as much as you can for them in situations where you can't influence the game as a player, but it's horrible being on the sidelines, and that's probably partly maybe why I didn't watch too many games at the beginning. But now that I've, kind of got out of that headspace, and I'm there most weeks, if it's a home game especially, it's really nice to be involved and to be around the team. But yeah, watching is probably the hardest part because no one wants to be on the sidelines. No, of course. And was it the Dartford Cup game that you did get some minutes in? Yeah, I think so. I've kind of erased that from my memory. Because on a personal note, I didn't get to show what I could do. I wasn't anywhere near the player I know I am and capable of being. So yeah, it was a frustrating 27 minutes of football.
It must be especially hard as well because the position that you play and you're there must be quite a lot of pressure on you to sort of score goals and make goals as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting position playing up front because obviously everyone expects goals, but I also think I offer a lot more, especially to my number 10s and my wingers. The way I play, I like to bring people into the game and be that focal point. And if I can get goals, that's even better. Obviously, I love to score goals. That's why we play up front, because we want that glory. But if I can help my team win, that's the main thing. So that's all that matters, really.
And really great that other sort of younger members of the team and the squad can really benefit from your experience as well.
Yeah, I hope so. But I'm also quite childish in nature, so I think I play more than I am serious. But I obviously, I know how to turn on the seriousness when I need to turn it on, and that obviously comes with experience and I guess being a little bit more grown up over the years. But for me, I love to have a laugh, have a joke, wind people up, and I think that's just part of my character and my nature. So I think I offer both in terms of being there if they need me, but I'll also have a laugh with them because I think that's more fun anyway.
I think every dressing room and group needs someone like that, doesn't it? Because it's fantastic, especially if results aren't going your way, or you need someone like that to really pick the rest of the team up.
Yeah, it's always important to have a balance of both, and as long as you've got that blend across the team, then everyone kind of fills their roles where they need to be.
So do you hope with the final 4 games of the season that you'll be able to play some sort of part in those remaining games?
That's the target. That's definitely what I'd like to achieve, because on a personal note, it rounds off such a long journey back from the injury, but it also means that I'm finding my feet within the team, and Carl's trusted me to be part of the matchday squad. So if I can get myself into 2 games by the end of the season, that would be a big win for me.
And as you say, so important for you to be able to sort of show what you can do as well, especially since arriving comparatively not that long ago.
Yeah, and I think it's important to show what I can do, because I'm not one of the flashy strikers that will bang goals left, right, and centre. I think my value is a lot more than just scoring goals. So it takes time for me to show that to people and for people to appreciate that. So yeah, I think if I can find my way into the team by the end of the season, yeah, it's a big win and it's a big bonus.
And what are your hopes for the team in terms of the remaining fixtures and what can be achieved?
Maximum points across the board. I think we're still in a cup, so if we can win that game and get ourselves into a final, that would be even better. All I know is I want to win, so yeah, maximum points across the board to really show the league that next season we're about meaning business.
No, absolutely. It must feel like a real sort of season of consolidation for yourself, and that must make you look forward to the next campaign, hopefully, and again showing what you can do there.
Definitely, yeah. It's frustrating not being able to do that this season, especially having had so much time at the club already. But yeah, we all have to build towards the future, and I think that's what's coming. And I think there's a lot of desire for us as a squad to achieve big things. And it's just the final details, the little details that we need to work on that I think will come through next season and show that we're actually a much better team than what the league says.
And obviously, as you mentioned, you've not sort of played that much, but how do you find kind of balancing, training and playing and with your kind of outside life as well?
It's actually a fairly easy thing to balance. My schedule with the freedom that I have being my own boss, I can pretty much be available most weeks. It's only when I have a job that comes in or a shoot that comes in that requires me to travel or be away that's when I miss football. But most of the time, my jobs are in London. I get back to training in time, and it's fairly easy to manage. When my diary is quite busy, then it can be a little bit more of a juggling act. But, we are players that are not in a professional environment, and therefore we have to balance our personal lives and our work lives with the football life still. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, for sure. Football has been a part of my life since I was very young, and I'd imagine it'll be a part of my life for another long, long time. Sometimes it's nice to do other things outside of football completely, which I do. I like to, go to the cinema. I like to paint. I like to, be boring and go for a walk. Anything that can, remove my mindset from football, I like to do. And I have friends outside of football that don't really like football. So, doing those little things does make a difference to help balance the life of being in football 24/7.
And is it really nice that your job isn't what you might call a sort of traditional role? It must be really nice for you to have that flexibility, as you say, sort of working for yourself as well.
Yeah, I have kind of 3 pillars that I work under as a director of photography and photographer. So they're all within a creative space. 2 of them are more hands-on jobs than directing. But yeah, it's something I really enjoy and I'm very passionate about. And I think as a director, the ambition is to eventually make films and work in TV and film. So, I won't be doing football documentaries and football lifestyle pieces with players forever. It will always be part of something I grew up on as a creative. But, the ambition is to get quite high up in this industry. So maybe I'll still be able to play football whilst making films one day. Who knows?
Absolutely, you can combine the two. It's fantastic to speak to you. Obviously, wish you a full recovery from your injury, and hopefully that you'll be back on the pitch very soon. And thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Real pleasure to chat to Axelle, who of course is a forward for Wycombe Wanderers Women. Each week on the Wycombe Wanderers Show, we'll catch up with members of the Wycombe Wanderers team, whether it's the under-23s, the under-18s, the first team, perhaps some of the coaches as well. So do tune in for more of them. Also, we regularly speak to Wycombe Wanderers ex-players as well, thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association. That feature shall return next week. Unfortunately, didn't have time for it this week. More from Phil next week as well. Of course, we'll be building up to the Easter period. Wycombe Wanderers at home to Pompey on Friday. If you're not going to Adams Park, you'll hear the whole match live here on Wycombe Sound and on Wanderers TV. Simon Garner will be on the Legends Lounge for that one as well, but we'll be telling you more about that next week. But now we have the Q&A with Phil and the chairman, Rob Couhig.